especially for people doing music, being in studios, it is more vital than you think it is.
Yeah.
It will help you sustain your energy through what you have to do.
This is the Behind the Sound podcast, where we talk to producers, engineers, artists, and other creatives alike. Hosted by Sean Gray and Manik. I mean, we've been looking forward to having you on the podcast, so it's glad that you're finally here.
Oh, we in it? We just jumping right in like that. I'm all the way in. Just all surprised. I'm doing well. I'm excited right now. I'm about to go to LA. It's like for a family thing, but like I'm excited. Next week, I'm out of here for 2 weeks. So
2 weeks. Wow.
Yeah.
What made you choose now to go? Or was it just like random?
No, I have a cousin who's getting married, so it was more his choice, less than mine.
That's exciting, though.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been to LA before or no?
Yeah, we went just before the pandemic, like October before the pandemic, and we were like, oh man, we gotta go back to LA, we gotta go back to Jamaica, just like vacations are important.
Yeah.
And yeah, then the pandemic broke out, and then,
Yeah, obviously.
none of that.
Yeah, no more of that.
So is this your first time like going on vacation ever since the pandemic?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we had a couple, the partner and I had a couple staycations or small things, but yeah, nothing good, nothing going away.
Word.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, man.
So why don't you tell our audience who you are, what it is that you do, just a little bit of background about who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, my name's Darcy, producer, engineer, a bit of a developer, or a lot of a developer. And yeah, I've been, into music since I was a teenager. Started off as a rapper. Fell in love once I heard 2001 by Dr. Dre.
Nice.
Started off as a rapper. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I have more questions about that.
I was just waiting to see if you're gonna ask me to freestyle there. I'm like,
maybe we'll get one at the end.
No. I mean, I've been freestyling recently, but it's all mumbles just to come up with ideas.
Yeah.
That's what it always is.
Yeah. I find that you write better the more you let it kind of be like ska, you're doing blues and jazz and stuff like that, where you just you let it, you just kind of figure out the rhythms, and then you don't focus on the lyrics, and then you figure out the lyrics later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, working with local artists and creator of an app that someone in this room enjoys called StudioAssist, and I just I'm a tech nerd who also just loves music and is always trying to find that place in between.
Nice. So it's a good combo though, to have both, have a good background in tech, and also really understanding that tech, then to bring that into music, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I learn a little bit differently. I'm a visual learner who's also a reverse engineer type mindset.
Right.
And some concepts and the way people teach stuff in music, I struggle with. And then I'll go code something related to music, and I'm like, oh, now I finally get it. And it's a completely different way of, not the way anyone else is learning it. I'm like, oh, but now it makes sense to me because I've coded it.
Right. So bring us back. What got you started in music? What was the, what was kind of the end all be all when you were growing up?
What really threw me into it is it really always comes back to 2001 by Dr. Dre for me.
Damn, bro.
I really that wasn't the first time I got into hip hop. The first time, I always like to tell people this because it's they roll their eyes at it, but you always find your gateway in was MC Hammer with Can't Touch This. My mom had gotten a literal mixtape. You go to a Byway, a Zellers or whatever, or I'm trying to think what the American equivalent of that is. But yeah, a thrift store, and she bought an actual physical tape that had a mix of different random bands on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And she was playing it through, and I was 7 or 8, and all of a sudden MC Hammer came on, and I was like, Mom, what was that? And, play that over again. And so that was my first introduction. But when I heard 2001 by Dr. Dre, I was just the sound. The sound of it is what's always attracted me to want to make music, because it kind of set this like goal in my mind is at some point before I die, I have to have created a project that sounds like that in some way, like my version of that, but it like the way the vocals are, the way everything sounds. I just need to create something that I'm like, okay, I've made something like that. I can die now. We're good.
Have you started on that project already?
I've made attempts. Yeah. I think we've all made our attempts, and yet it's hard to get close to Dre.
Yeah.
But I've been brewing something in my mind recently that I want to get back to working towards that.
Dope.
Nice.
So how old were you at the time when you discovered
Yeah,
2001? Yeah.
yeah, you're just trying to date me right now. That's what you're trying to do.
No, I'm just curious how far like into like your lifespan, because some people like started music right when they were 5 years old, and some people started music when they're like 21. You know what I mean? It's like
Absolutely. No, I was 14, 15
Okay.
when that came out. Like the like 2001 really set me on a path, but like a year before, like on my way into high school, I had a friend and he was pulling up a little old messaging system called ICQ, for those who are old enough to know what that is.
Damn, I don't even know.
Y'all looking at me like, damn, y'all don't even know.
I have no idea.
So, y'all know ICQ. Y'all definitely don't know IRC. Y'all know MSN Messenger.
I don't ever say
yeah.
You know
Yeah.
Yahoo Chat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So ICQ is like the godfather to messengers, okay? like literally to this day, like iMessage steals stuff from ICQ.
No way.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's
Really?
but I'm not gonna keep going down that path. But like, so he got this app, and I was like, let me start using this, and we were trying to talk to girls first off. Like that was number
Yeah,
one what
yeah,
we were
exactly.
doing.
Yeah.
But like, oh, let's try to meet the girls before we go to high school that we're gonna meet in high school, right? And then he randomly brought me into this like a group chat type thing where you could bring multiple people in,
Yeah.
and some people started like freestyle rapping, but they were typing it,
Right.
And so I got like intrigued with that, and I was like, let me try some of this.
That's fire.
And then we went into Yahoo Chat, and Yahoo Chat was interesting because they had like a character limit, and everyone who would go into these like rap group like battles, we all figured out you could only write 4 bars.
Right.
So everyone was like, I'll write 4 bars and I'll up your 4 bars and I'll up your 4 bars. And it was just like this like random battle with random strangers. And I started getting into that and got into high school and was like trying to like rap that stuff out loud, and it was bad, but it is what it is. And then 2001 was happening around that time, and I was just like, yo, this is the way, just to this day.
It's crazy.
Like, I put it on recently and I'm just like, still.
Still,
It's-
yeah,
it's
timeless.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like definitely one of my favorite albums by Dre, for sure.
Yeah, it's just like sonically though, like
Yeah.
there's stuff like every generation since then, and it's like still stuff. It keeps standing up. It's amazing how well it still sounds.
Yeah. Even like, I think that's an example of like a good timeless record that will always stand like the test of time. It's not going to go anywhere really.
Yeah,
It's, when you listen to it, people are going to associate all kinds of different feelings with it.
It kind of like sets the standard too.
Yeah.
For,
I
like,
mean,
what people are trying to achieve.
exactly.
yeah. I mean, the work he did then, and Marshall Mathers LP was a big one on me at the same time, because it was I love those 2 albums because they sound like they were made. I never really looked into it, but they sound like they were made like in the same month. Like I know there wouldn't be a month like to make all of the work, but it felt like the way that they sonically sounded, they sounded like they were made back to back by like they were both sitting in the same studio working on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dre did work on it. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah, no, but it's just like if you take any other of like Eminem's albums, like
Yeah.
the Slim Shady LP before that, and then like I forget which one followed, but they don't sound as like in sync with like 2001. It's like they feel like they're a continuation and they're not even related, but they
Yeah.
just feel so similar in their sound.
Yeah.
Wow. Makes me wonder now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go look that up.
yeah, I know. I probably should have already looked that up.
So question. So before 2001 and like before like the chat and like the rapping and everything, what was life like for you?
Yeah, it's
Like from a way younger
Wow,
What-
we going there today? Eh?
if you don't want to dive into
No,
it,
I'm
you
not,
know what I mean?
I'm just teasing. As you can tell, I'm a sarcastic person, but I'm also an open book with this stuff. So I'm give people a little background for who can't see me. I'm a biracial individual. I grew up with my mother without my dad, like in my childhood, and I grew up. My mom would move around a lot of places, and I lived in a lot of countrysides and stuff like that. So I was definitely the first person that people had seen, for most people, that didn't look like them.
Right.
And so I dealt with a lot of like adversity kind of
Yeah.
growing up. And by the time, and like, I put this like, a lot of the musical influences up until that point, like you couldn't, even though hip hop was happening,
Yeah.
it was not happening where I was. It didn't even exist until Eminem came through and he broke like the walls down, and it started flooding into wherever I was.
Yeah.
But yeah, before that point, it was, music was, I was finding things I liked, but never finding anything that I could like listen to consistently. So I was kind of like passively enjoying the radio.
Right.
But
Gotcha.
like there'd be stuff like I'd hear like No Doubt, with Gwen Stefani, I'd be like, oh, there's some cool stuff in here. But I wouldn't listen to everything.
Yeah.
I was really like, like in Nirvana. I mean, to this day, I still love that album. I mean, Nirvana's amazing.
Yeah.
And but I would be other stuff I would just like find snippets of, and then it wasn't until like rap came into my life, and I was just like, just more, just more. Like I'm like the whole album. Like I went through a very long DMX phase, very long DMX phase.
NWA.
Ironically, not as much, only just because it wasn't all coming. So NWA didn't really show up where I was. I only really listened to NWA after into like my 20s. And I'm also kind of like a person where as much as I will explore, I also kind of wait for things to come to me, and then I just kind of like let them happen instead of
I
like
feel that.
I'll research a lot of stuff at times, but I won't always know everything.
Everything will
see.
happen in due time, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's how to put this. I hate to read, and
Good way to put it.
but there's a reason to this. And so I'll like grab a book and I'll read like sometimes a couple not paragraphs, a couple of chapters, and I'm done with this. And then I'll be like, you know what? When I finish this book, it'll be the right time. And every time I re-picked that book up and finished it, I was like, man, all the lessons later, I wouldn't have been ready for them until the time that I read them. So like sometimes you just gotta let things come to you when they come to you. Otherwise, you may not appreciate them. You may not be in the right place.
Makes
I like
sense.
that one. I like that one a lot.
Yeah. So I don't like to read had a purpose there.
So did you grow up in Toronto?
No, I actually just learned because I was listening to a couple first episodes of you guys' podcast that I actually grew up in an area that one of you guys is from, Kingston.
Yeah.
I didn't realize
No
that.
way, really?
I was listening. I was like, oh shit, man, from Kingston too. Yeah, I was born in Ottawa, moved a crap ton of places, but by the time I hit like high school, I was living in like near Kingston for the most of it. A little town called Amherst View outside of Kingston.
Okay, I know where that is.
I've
Yeah.
never heard of that.
Yeah, you.
I was Belleville.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, I was sorry, not Belleville. So it's Kingston, and then I lived in Gananoque.
Oh snap!
Yeah, exactly.
Is that like really close to each other? I'm assuming.
Gananoque is close to Kingston, but it's like population 1,500.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh wow,
It's tiny.
yeah,
wow.
It's really tiny.
yeah. I worked there for a little bit. It's a very small place.
Yeah. my aunt still lives out there. Oh man, it's beautiful out there. I'm not gonna lie, I like it.
Yeah, Kingston's beautiful, but it's like you're born there, you go there to school to party, and you come back to die. Like, but everything else in between, you're just like,
Yeah,
"No,
get
I'm
the
good."
fuck out of here.
Yeah, there's nothing else to do. Like between the ages you really want to do something with your life, it's a boring place to be.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so so you become a big fan of music. Where's your life heading at this point?
Like from being a teenager.
Yeah.
I started like recording some of my own stuff. Like everybody made a pop filter out of your mom's pantyhose and a coat hanger. I ended up recording like my first little mixtape-ish, album-ish type thing, like we all try to do. Like 17 type tracks or whatever.
How did those turn out?
some better than others, man.
Yeah.
You know, I just recently found it again, and I was listening back to it, and I was like, yeah, there's a few skips in there, like half the album. But, but at the time, you know, like, I mean, the one thing though that always surprised me when you go back is like there'll be tracks that you tried hard on and you sucked because you're young and you're trying to emulate something, and then there'd be ones where you're like, I'd write something that was like, you know, about pain or something I was really feeling, and to this day I'm like, I can't believe I had those lyrics like arranged like that at that age. Like, I don't think I was that smart, but somehow those words came out that way.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, but like, I just love the process of learning how to mix it myself. I was always very frustrated with the quality because I could always hear it being better, but had no idea how to get there.
Yeah.
I made music throughout high school into my like early 20s till I went to college and went to school for radio broadcasting. But then I had like a period where like I switched after I was done that. I tried to get a job in radio, realized there was like no real money there. I ended up going back to school for business. And then I kind of like just had this like phase where I went down this road of business and I just stopped making music for a period of time. It was always there with me, and I would have equipment and then I wouldn't really reuse it. So I just kind of stopped, but I was like still having this underlying desire, but I just wasn't utilizing it. I was focused on something else and started getting to an age where I was like, you know, wanted to party, and I just started focusing on doing other things. Into my like mid 20s though, coming up to my 30s, like I just had this like there's a part of me that I'm missing, and I just kept thinking about music, had like a cousin or somebody who was doing something, and my brother had been to this day he's a quite prominent like rapper in Holland, and he was on the up and coming, and so I was like just desiring that part of me to go back. So coming in around my 30th birthday, I was like, what the fuck am I waiting for? Let me just get back into making music.
Yeah.
So I just started heading back into it, started pulling out all the old software, which and just figuring it out again, and decided I wanted to like. At first, I had this dumb idea in my head. I'm like, I'll just make some beats real quick and put them on BeatStars.
Everybody starts that way.
Yeah.
I don't even know why I was thinking that, but yeah, I've just been on this path since then, just like producing things recently, focusing a lot more on mixing, just enjoying mixing a lot. But I don't know, just I like creating what I like to create when it comes to production. When it comes to mixing, I just like the challenge. I'm so into the like technology and the sonics and the challenge of being presented with something different that I just like when mixing, I'm like open to everything.
So you're all self-taught, everything pretty much.
Yeah. Like everything's a reverse engineer. No real schooling for it. The only time I really had schooling in this
was radio, right?
Radio, actually lesser. I did have some schooling in radio, but I actually I forgot to mention this, but when I was in high school, my school actually had a focus program. And in the school, they actually had a recording studio, and yeah, it was pretty dope. They would bring on like I forget how many, but it was like 6 bands or whatever, and it was all bands in my school. I was the first one ever to not be a band, to not be like a country singer or a rock singer, like to come in. And
what was that like with like the teachers and like the classmates and everything?
It was actually dope. There was like 2 main teachers. One was I don't know, just like a chill dude who he was recording. I forget exactly what he did before, but I think he was just more like a live recording mixer, or like live. Getting the wrong terms here, but yeah, like he did like a lot of live production. And then the other one was just like exactly what you would think of like a hippie, you know, like a Bob Dylan lover. Just like he must have been as high as half of the students, like, you know, but like a lovable dude and like amazing. And yeah, so they would bring you in for the semester and you had to like produce an EP by the end of the semester, and you would learn a lot of stuff. And so like they had me learning like Sony Vegas. Y'all
I remember Sony Vegas.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm always surprised if people know what Sony Vegas is.
I do not know what Sony Vegas is.
It's just like
need a crash course.
It's just a multi-track recorder. Like it's just like a pre-Pro Tools. That's all it is. It's just like far more limited.
Yeah,
But-
and then they added like a video engine to it later on.
Yeah.
That's because I was using Vegas when I was doing videos back in the day.
Yeah. That's
You used to do videos?
Yeah, I did.
What?
I
I
was
was just finding this out.
bro. I was a hardcore gamer for like a long time, so I was making like NHL videos. I was making like COD videos, like, and I was using Sony Vegas to like edit all of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah. That must have been hard back then. Like just like the technology.
Oh, dude, it was terrible. Honestly, it was so terrible. You had to get. It's called I can't remember what it's called. It's Apogee. It's like this.
Apogee.
So we all have these crazy like capture cards like built in your computer and like built in your PS4 now or PS5 wherever we are. But before you'd have to hook up this separate device to your computer and then to the console, right, to capture the like the image that was being produced on the screen.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to. The capture card was, that's exactly what it would do. Just capture it and then send it to your computer. So it was kind of finicky. It wouldn't always work. It wasn't the best quality. I think we got up to like 1280, 720.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I was pretty good quality, as HD, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I remember people making like the old kill reels for video games, and like how did they even do that? How did they get those recordings? How did they get those like 3D movements? And like how did I just but yeah, I'm still impressed you still got the 1280.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
Yeah. You said that you developed an app.
Yeah.
And that you're a developer.
Yeah.
What is StudioAssist? What does it do? And why did you build it?
Well, let's start with why I built it. So for anyone who's like, wants to get their reverbs into like a good sound with a track to not sound like it's just all over the place. Of course, you can just, do it based on feel, and sometimes that's the most appropriate thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really good to just get it on the grid. And in other words, meaning like line it up with the timing of the song. So like the reverb tail lasts 1 bar or 2 bars, and sometimes you want that pristine sound, sometimes you don't. And I was trying to get, I learned about that, and I was like doing the calculation for it. So I'd go online and I'd find online calculator, and I'd be like mixing, and I'd be like, oh, this is slow. And I hated the way the websites were, because I make websites. I really get pissed when I go to a website and I feel like it's cumbersome to use, and I know how it could be way better and easier to use.
Right.
So, and I also, the thing that was really bothering me was that like I would, go and spend a certain period of time trying to get the answer, and it would piss me off. So I just, at one point I was like, I'm just gonna make an easier version, and I made my own website, like just a simple web page. It was a lot easier to use.
I think I remember that at the time.
Yeah, it's still technically up. I use it to like feed people to StudioAssist.
Nice.
But so I made an easier one. But then I realized one point, I'm still opening my web browser.
Yeah.
And having to type the URL in. And if my internet is for any reason slow, now I gotta wait for this page load. Then I do the calculation, figure out, okay, how many milliseconds does it take for this reverb to be 1 bar or 2 bars or whatever. And I'd get back, put it in the software, and I'd be like, what was I doing again?
Yeah.
Like just
reverb.
Yeah, right. Or like you get the reverb in, but you're as any engineer or any producer or anyone who's like just working on something, you're usually thinking, okay, I'll try it like this, and then I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna do that. And when you spend like 3 minutes longer than you plan to spend on getting that reverb in, you forgot step 2, step 3 that you were thinking
stuff
of.
you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I just like at one point I was like, I just want to like make this something where I can Alt Tab, type the number, click copy, and then put it in my software. Like I want to cut it down to seconds so that I don't get out of the zone. And so I, through work and whatnot, and just talking with like people I work with, they were like talking about how I could use web programming languages to make desktop apps.
Yeah.
And so I was like, let me just try this out. And so I tried it out. I was like,
So you just did it for fun at first?
I was doing it. Everything about StudioAssist primarily has been things I've realized that were bothering me.
Yeah.
And if I felt like I could technically achieve it in a short period of time, then I will implement it into the app. The reason why it's not called like Reverb Calculator and it's called StudioAssist is because I wanted it to just signify that it's going to be multiple things in the studio that I feel like I need an assistant to do, but I just want it to be done fast.
Yeah.
So I just want to have these things like instantaneously, so I stay in the zone.
Right.
And it doesn't require the internet. If I was in a situation where I didn't have internet and couldn't get internet, but I need that answer now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like the primary thing. So it started with reverb. It also, I started realizing like I'm not like musically trained, and so I wanted to be able to quickly pull up things related to scales really quickly. I don't have them memorized. Yeah. So I was like, I just want to be able to quickly pull up what's in the scale, what the keys are. I'm the kind of person where I've done a lot of Googling and hit a lot of like pictures of the scales. So I was like, you know what? I bet there's other people who are doing the same thing.
Right.
So I just incorporated something where it's like you could type in for any scale of any type and easily pull it up, just because it's something that I saw myself doing. So let me make that easier and make that like a faster process. And because of doing that, I've also learned a lot more about scales, ironically, just because I had to like see it from a different side of things. So I just been incorporating problems that I'm seeing, and I just want to make them faster and easier to do, or easier to solve.
Nice.
What's something you learned about scales?
Oh man. Just the like, I don't know how to put it. Like, for instance, like one of the things I incorporated was like a frequencies over every note for every octave, and just like seeing the relationship and seeing all the numbers at once just kind of like made things sink in for me a little bit differently, just about sound and how it sits in frequencies. Just the simplicity that there are in a lot of scales. I mean, I memorize it better because of the tool that I'm using, but I don't know, just it made certain things that like I was hearing or people talk about, like terminology, it just made the terminology kind of sink in for me. Just because I just learn in a weird way.
It's how you explained it at the beginning, right? About how like you would code something and then it would click for you then.
Yeah. I gotta see things visually, and most of the time people are describing things. I'm like, I don't see what you're describing. So until I can see it, I don't really grasp it. And then once I see it, I usually get it right away.
Right. So StudioAssist ultimately is a reverb time calculator. So you insert a BPM and it will spit out some numbers back to you, basically.
Yeah, it'll spit out it'll calculate like the milliseconds for like every measure between like 1/28th to like 4 seconds.
Right.
And then you can get
4 bars.
Yeah, 4 bars. Yeah, sorry. Thanks for the catch on that one. And you can go also like dotted and triplet. And then it also adds in like pre-delay, so that way it will automatically reduce down the calculation for like your 2-3 bars out of it. I also add an interesting feature that like most of these ones don't do, which is just more for like a personal taste thing, which I add like a swing feature, which is like it'll make it earlier or later. So like you can get it perfect on the grid, but some people want things to be slightly off the grid. And so sometimes you just or have a song where you're like, I don't want it to be quite on the grid. Yeah. So you basically can add like 5% or 10% or 50% like later than where it was supposed to be, kind of a thing.
I see.
Just so that people can have like a little bit of like control over it if they want to consistently be off by a certain amount.
Nice. So can you explain what pre-delay is? Because I feel like a lot of people don't understand like the concept of pre-delay, or they don't quite get it. And then why does pre-delay then compensate your calculation later?
Yeah, so pre-delay is basically like when you have. I love how you're putting me on the pressure to be the technical guy. When you have like like let's say you have a hit of a snare, right? The time in which first off your reverb is just going to be like how long does it take for that sound of the room to just go away? That's your decay time. Your pre-delay is just determining if you want to push that out, delay when it starts, right? So if I wanted to not that you would normally do this, but like make it wait a whole second. So you hit the sound, it's dead silent for a second, and then all of a sudden the reverb starts.
Yeah.
Right? But in reality, we want that to be like very fractional milliseconds. And when you have a bit of pre-delay or more pre-delay, it will create more separation so that the vocal, for instance, that you're hearing will sound cleaner because the reverb sound is farther away. Like the word that they are saying, the duplication of that, the like muddier reverb version of that is further away from the actual word. So you hear the word before you hear the reverb. The reverb comes in. And why you would want to reduce your decay time is because if you want your reverb to actually end on the second, if you add
40 milliseconds to it,
you're pushing it over, which may be your desire,
Yeah.
which is why I put the swing feature in. But if you had a long pre-delay mixed with a long reverb tail, you're going to be way off from what you're actually intending to do.
Exactly. Gotcha. That's a great answer. So
I'm glad I rose to the occasion.
So for all of our listeners, Darcy has been kind enough to give us a discount code. So the code is BTS5, and I will get you $5 off the app, and that will be in the show notes for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
How much is the StudioAssist app?
It's $20.
Wow.
Yeah, so $5 off. He's been generous enough to you guys, so go get it and support your boy.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, just like to help out the community in general, like whether this app or other things I do, I just like to, make it easier for other, people to make the music they want, to stay in the zone, If you have to send a beat file that doesn't have a BPM, the app you can drag it in and it'll estimate the BPM for you and things like that, just to make people's lives easier.
Yeah, we've had some pretty long conversations about this whole app and like how improvements that we could do, and so like it's been fun like having those conversations with you, and just kind of feeding ideas to one another about the app. One of which was we talked about like tempo detection, talked about potentially adding key finder, adding notes when we play the keys on the in the scale. But yeah, like that. I love the app. I love how simple it is to use. It's very intuitive. Like you don't have to like think too hard. You just look at it, and if you are producing music, you're just, even for someone who's just getting started, it's really easy. There's no real like learning curve to the app. So,
no, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, that's always my goal. I mean, just with anything that I've done that's like code based, I always try to make things like visually like simplistic.
Yeah.
I really love Apple, in their methodology for that stuff, where they're just being very intuitive, just to make lives easier for the people that are actually using it. I love Apple. I hate Microsoft. Don't get me started. Ever since I developed this app, I like Microsoft far less. There's a lot of reasons that could be half the podcast right there.
So what's the because you have a background in development and software engineering, or it's more, what's your actual role?
Yeah, my role, I'm a what's called a front end developer for websites.
Okay.
There's a difference, but as time progresses, things are melding more. But there is usually a big difference between like app developers or software developers and web developers.
Gotcha.
There are crossover languages, but there's usually a separation. A lot of people will be like, oh yeah, you make websites, so you can make it. I'm like, no. That's like a lot of things I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to learn.
How did you get into that?
In college, I had this one summer job that a bunch of us were like, just looking for whatever work. And they're like, oh, we're going to have kids come and we're going to change all the computers in our college this year. So come in and take this job, and you just like basically unplug and plug in new computers. Like that was like the job. Ironically, they took them 3 out of the 4 months to decide what computers to buy. And we had 2 weeks to install what we're supposed to take 4 months to do. So for the first 3 months, I was just hanging out with a couple of guys, and we would be on the computers literally playing games because we weren't doing any work because they weren't making any decisions. And one of the guys I was with was like, like coding a WordPress site, and I was like, "Yo, what are you doing?" And I just like learned a little bit of code from him, and then I just kept like, you know, picking up more stuff here and there and taking on more challenges at different times. And at one point, while I was moved to Toronto, I was working different jobs. I just was I had a friend. We decided to make an app, a completely different app, not related to this at all, not related to music at all. We made a different app. It was decent, but it didn't end up working out. Yeah, he ended up getting a job as a software, or not a software, as a web developer, and he was like, "You should come work here." And so I ended up taking a job and basically turning from a amateur developer to a pro developer on the job.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Was it like a learning curve going from like the self-taught aspect and like seeing your friend do it to actually being in the workplace where you're now amongst people that probably went to school for it and everything like that?
you know, this thing is funny about web developers and music. There's a couple of funny similarities. One is most of the people are self-taught.
Yeah.
The most people I come across are self-taught. There are plenty more people in the software game and the web development game that are educated engineers than I would say that there are people in the music business who are educated on music. But there's still a lot of people that are self-taught, or we consider self-taught, like people who do boot camps, who like, you know, are like 9 months. It's different than going to school for like 4 years, right? Obviously, time.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of self-taught people. And ironically, there's a very large portion of software and web developers that are actually musicians and come from the music side of things.
So interesting.
There's something about the way music tickles the brain that also software tickles the brain in a similar way.
Yeah.
And
I wonder what that is.
I'm wondering the same thing, but I've worked with so many guys, and it'd be like, you're like, "Oh, you're into music? Yeah, you're into music too, right?" Like one of the guys that like I manage, like
It's got to be the tech, man.
yeah,
It might be
there's
it
so
might
much.
be because like if you think about it, right? Like for music and the same thing with like web development, anything, you're really kind of like making something out of nothing.
Yeah.
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 So it's
100%.
like that may be kind of like the tie between the two, because it's like you have nothing and then you have poof to the eye of the.
Yeah, I could relate it with music because I have like a little bit of experience like coding.
Yeah,
and,
because you started doing that too, right?
yeah, and it's always for me it's solving a problem, right?
Yeah.
It's that, you know, like in a mix, when I get a rough mix, it's like kind of fucking all over the place, and you're like, oh dude, this is a mess. Like how am I gonna solve this problem to get it to be in a place where the client's happy and I'm happy or whatever, right? And it's kind of the same thing with like coding, because like, you know, Darcy had a problem where he was constantly going to the web, and you know, it was just very clunky for him. So he solved the problem. And I think that's part of it as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that they're creating something out of nothing,
yeah.
solving the problems. I mean, I love what you're saying about like you get a rough mix and it's in a bad place. I mean, one of my favorites is like I have a client who sent me the rough mix, and she was basically articulating how mad she was at the person she worked with. I get the impression that there was more than just the bad work. There was a bad attitude from that individual. And she sent it to me, and I was like, the rough mix sounds like unbelievable garbage. Like, it makes her sound like she can't sing almost. But I could hear it through that, right? And then I get to my first mix, like I get to the mix of that song, and like I've played it for people. It still hasn't come out yet because we haven't finished the work that she's working on. But I've played people like the difference between the two songs, and they're like, are these the same thing? Right? Like her voice is brought forward. There's multiple, like it's just like
It's night and day.
there's a thing that I like. I have a stupid phrase. It doesn't mean anything, but it's what I end up say. So it's like I uncover the song in the song. But there's like a responsibility when you find a song from somebody that, you know, is putting something into it and it's trash, or, you know, it's just a normal recording but it doesn't really have any love to it. The responsibility to like bring out their potential, and then have them turn around and go like, damn, like I actually sound that good, like, you know, and having that that experience
Yeah.
is a thing I always love. I always love finding somebody and then making them like love themselves by the end of it.
That's
I
like
like
the
that.
beauty in what we do, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like a challenge that you like go into. It's like whenever you're like tasked with like a little bit of a challenge, you're not always gonna get the artist that comes in sounding like Drake. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like being able to get people that close is always dope.
Yeah.
You don't know how good and how important an engineer is until you hear a Drake recording and mix that makes Drake not sound like Drake. And then you realize,
Right.
holy shit, the person in that middle had such a responsibility to do them right.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying we've all heard bad Drake mixes. I feel like we've heard a few,
Yeah.
you know, like a few features he's been on here and there. Like, yeah, that's not going to go anywhere.
But sometimes I feel like that's not always that. You know, we'd like to associate like how good it sounds with like, you know, how good the mix is or how good that person was. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think it's like, you know, you put Lord in front of a mic. Doesn't matter which mic. Doesn't matter which person behind the board. Lord is still Lord. She's still going to, you know, evoke some sort of emotion in her performance, no matter how good or bad it sounds.
Yeah.
But
I just get really mad when you take potential and don't try.
yeah,
You know?
exactly.
And like, it's one thing for someone to like, oh, okay, I hear what you were trying to go for there.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. You know, you didn't quite get it there, but I feel what you were trying to put down with that mix. Versus where you're like, man, there's a good artist here, and this does not sound like you had any care in what you were doing with this mix. Like you were just
There's
like
no intent.
no one,
Yeah.
like you if you charge so little that you can't care when you work, then don't charge so little. Like,
Or just don't do this at all.
yeah, either one.
What got you into YouTube?
Yeah, what started you?
I've tried multiple times at YouTube. So I think in the beginning, it was like everybody else. We all wanted to be a version of Casey Neistat and be a vlogger and be like a YouTuber.
Fucking legend.
Yeah, I mean, he is a friggin' legend.
He's amazing.
Yeah, like everyone who's tried to be him fundamentally doesn't understand why he's so good at what he does, which is just that he makes, as he calls it, his YouTube videos are not YouTube videos, they're films. They're just short films.
Yeah.
But he makes YouTube videos like a person who just records like a little diddle every day for no other reason, just to record it. But currently, in the last year or so through the pandemic, I've been more focused on my YouTube. And what really got me coming back to it was I'd been doing stuff and trying this and trying that, but always kind of falling in love or putting too much expectation on what I was making. And then Universal Audio dropped their version of a DAW or recording software called Luna.
Yeah.
And I had bought an Apollo like 2 years before, and I was like, I saw their preview at NAMM, and I was like, I don't know. But they're like, it's free. And I'm like, well, I mean, I bought an Apollo. I like all of their plugins. It's free. I'm going to try it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried it in the first week, and they had like a video where they announced it, and they're on because they were like dropping it in the pandemic, so they doing a YouTube video and they're showing you how to use it. And I was like, oh, okay. Only if they didn't show me how to use it. I mean, I don't think it would have had any success if they didn't show people how to use it.
Yeah.
But they were showing, and I was like, okay, let me try some things. It's different than Logic. I was heavily into Logic, and I started using it, and I was learning their short keys because they were showing them like the short keys right away, which is like things like Pro Tools and stuff and like Ableton. There's tons of short keys, but it's a little intimidating when you're coming into something that's got a lot of legacy and a lot to learn versus something that's like brand new and there's a lot less to learn. So I started using it, and after a week I was like trying it out, and then I went back to Logic to work on something, and I found that I was struggling to move as fast. Even though Logic can do more, has more features, I was moving slower and I was getting a worse sound because something about like Luna's just visual approach and some of these things they came with where they had like the tape saturation built in.
Yeah.
I was struggling to gain stage the same way. And after 1 week, I was like, I don't think I can use Logic anymore because it
That's
was
crazy.
making me shift my mindset. It was reminding me when back to like high school when I was actually recording through like a Behringer, like, 32 channel
Yeah.
mixer, and having to think like that, like analog again. And instead of thinking the way like, very digital that like Logic Pro and a lot of these other ones are. So it started driving me down this other path. And so I started like using Luna as my primary. And then after a little period of time, I realized even though like they were doing their Monday videos and they would be like an hour and something long, I was realizing like nobody's
Covering this.
like really covering it in a simple way of like all the like how to use Luna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And-
they had their videos. Like they're like quick starts, right?
Yeah, but they're like, here's like a 5 minute on one thing.
Yeah.
But there were so many little things I was learning and nobody's really talking about it. So I was like, I'm just gonna start making videos. I'm in the pandemic. I'm bored home by myself. I'm just gonna start putting out like 1 or 2 videos a week. So for the first like 50 weeks, I just put out 2 videos like a week almost, or almost 50 weeks.
Exclusively about how to use Luna.
Yeah. And at this point, I'm like somewhere over 100, I don't know, videos on how to use Luna. I've done all kinds of things from like everything like this last 2 weeks was just showing how you could set up like A/B referencing of reference tracks with Luna. I was like finally found some soloing things I didn't notice in Luna. Put out a video, then it got slammed by a bunch of people like, no, you could do it this way. And then one of the guys from Universal Audio was like, no, actually, Darcy, here's a whole other way, and show me a Dropbox video on a Facebook group. So I'm like, all right, here's the other way to do it. So I've been like talking about like A/B referencing, but everything from that to like testing it like in the M1 versus non-M1s and all kinds of different things, but just really just like helping the community. And also the other goal is like to be one of the first. How many times we see something and we're not the first one to jump on the trend. And so I saw this as an opportunity, like, hey, let's just
for you to be kind of like that forefront figure of Luna on YouTube.
Yeah, like there's still a lot of people who talk about Luna, especially recently with other things with Universal Audio's, their drops they've done and announcements. More people are talking about like Luna, but there are other people who show a little bit. There's nobody else who shows as much as I've shown.
Okay, so
do you use Luna like
Yeah.
completely now?
Oh, I've been exclusive since that first week.
Wow.
I couldn't, like, I'll open up Logic for a few things, and there was a period of time where I was using Logic in the studio to record because I didn't have things quite set up right with like Luna. I had like a MacBook that just couldn't handle it. Like I was running on an iMac, but I had a 2013 MacBook that just like couldn't handle Luna. It's resource heavy. It is not like every other DAW. It's like going to require 20-30% more resources doing nothing. Like it's really resource heavy. But yeah, I'm exclusive with it, and especially for recording now with like the new M1 Pro. I can't touch anything else. The way it integrates with like the Apollo and the way it just makes recording real time super simple, far easier than using it with console, like an Apollo with their console app. It's just I can't work any other way now. I love it.
Interesting. So basically, how well have your videos been doing on YouTube since you've focused just on Luna and UAD, the UAD kind of ecosystem?
I'd love to say like it's blown up like crazy, but it's still like a small community. It's still niche. So I mean, I have some videos that have done fairly well. Most of them all relate to the M1. No surprise there. But I've most videos, they're a couple hundred, right? Views. But there's like a community of people that like hardcore users. And one thing I've also realized, because Universal Audio doesn't really put out products that are financially appealing to everybody, right?
It's super expensive.
Yeah, there's a real community that I've started to realize of, like, I want to say like late 30s, but like a lot of 40s to 50-year-olds who have home studios who are not like full-time professionals, but they're just like, they're willing to invest money every year and they just want to make stuff, even if they don't release stuff. And they probably actually make up a big portion of like the spending in the music industry on hardware.
crazy.
And then like there's a bunch of people who, you know, are very passionate about watching my videos. I moved recently and I had to stop putting up videos for a few weeks. I put out a sarcastic like farewell video, like the title, just like clickbait. And some people were like, no. And I was like, I'm just getting around, guys. I had to.
That's dope though. You kind of like have your own community.
Yeah.
Since you started, what else has kind of came from that? So UAD approached you and you started working with them.
Yeah. The main guy who's, I forget what his exact title is, but he's like in charge of like Luna and like the direction of the product. He saw some videos I put out on Instagram, clips from like my YouTube channel, and he was like very appreciative of the fact that I was like going out of my way to promote that product, right? So they reached out to me for like the beta program. There's a beta program that like Universal Audio's had, and it's like there's quite a lot of people in there.
Yeah, I just want to highlight something real quick for the listeners is that, so you know, you were giving a lot of value to the people watching your content, but you also took that content and you put it on YouTube, and that's how you were approached. So like, you know, it's kind of important to realize that there's all kinds of different opportunities. Now Darcy's working with UAD on their platform.
Yeah.
In the beta program, testing different kinds of products out before the general public gets access to them. So anyway, continue.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. I spent a lot of time like testing out Luna features that are unreleased, things I can't obviously talk about. But you know, I get to see like the things that are coming. There's a feature that's coming that I'm super excited about.
Can't talk about?
No, of course I can't talk about it.
Come on.
Especially not while we're recording.
You can always cut it out.
I'm not taking that chance, bro. I literally like there was like a what's something that's already released, but like we all know, but like UAD Spark now, like their subscription program.
Yeah,
there's like they were very hush hush about that one. Like I was
crazy.
I was testing that out since like 3 months before it came out.
Damn.
Like there are a lot of stuff that they test. It's like I'll see it for like 2 to 3 months. Like Vision Console, I was testing that for like 3 months.
Damn.
Right? And like and the thing that kills you is like they put it out in an alpha, which is like just coding language for like very early.
Yeah.
And then it goes into like the beta. And then you're like, and you know it's gonna come out when it goes into like the beta phase. And in between, they'll like put it out for alpha, like, oh, we're just trying this out. And then you'll give feedback, like, all right, we're gonna take it out the app, and then we'll put it back in later, right? And they'll take it out, and you're like, fuck, I need that feature. like the second they took the Vision Console out, I was like, oh, my wallet's gonna be coming out after this. This is gonna hurt me because I need it so bad. Yeah, and like be able to give feedback and you know sometimes like I get reached out personally for certain like Luna questions, and I'll you know give direct feedback that they'll change some things in the way that they're approaching it. Sometimes sometimes it's just like to give like a general, like is this good, is it not good, and stuff like that. Like when they were working on their sidechain, there was a bunch of us like going in hard on their sidechain features, like okay, change it like this, change it like that, yeah, it's I enjoy it, like also because I'm in software, so I understand generally how they're thinking in their process, so I'll kind of like introduce stuff around that. But yeah, it's nice to be connected and to be able to like contribute to the thing that I'm enjoying.
Yeah, nice. You seem to have a lot of, your toes dipped in all kinds of different areas. How do you balance all of this out? Because I mean, you work full time as a coder or a developer, and you're doing music. You're producing, you're engineering. You got music, you got clients there. You're doing YouTube content. How do you juggle all of this?
There's a couple of very important things. You have to discipline yourself with your time. And as much as people don't always think that this is important, but I feel people in this room will appreciate, is that I honestly think that fitness and health is super vital. And like what you eat really impacts your mood. If you don't drink enough water, it'll really impact the quality of your organs all the way up to your skin. But exercise especially for people doing music, being in studios, it is more vital than you think it is.
Yeah.
It will help you sustain your energy through what you have to do.
And you think it's like, because I can attest to this too, where like, when I don't exercise, I'm more lethargic. I'm the less active throughout the day. But whereas the days where I go out and I either have a run or I lift some weights, bro, I'm like on my feet for like the rest of the day. And that's like super important because, it does affect you, your mood and everything. And, producers, engineers, and artists, are all tend to be known to like just sit and hide in the studio for hours on end, right?
You do 75-day hard, right?
So yeah, I actually failed. I failed 75-day hard, unfortunately, because I caught COVID. But so I'm starting that again. I was 33 days in out of 75, so caught COVID. And then I pushed through two of the days that I had COVID. I felt like shit, but I kept doing it. And then the third day that I had COVID, I had to quit. I was like, my body would like literally shut down and was like, yo, like don't try anything as much as I wanted to continue. But so yeah, I'm starting again. I'm on day 3 today.
What is 75-day hard for the people that don't know?
Okay, so shout out Andy Frisella for developing this program called 75-day hard. It's so you got to do 2 workouts, one of which 2 45-minute workouts, one of which has to be outside. And they can't be back to back. You can't do, your outside workout and then come in and do your other workout. You got to, leave some time in between. You got to follow a diet. You got to follow a diet. That means like for me, it's like no processed foods. Like I didn't even have a single chocolate chip on my first 75-day hard. I was, like nothing like that. Don't cheat. You got to drink a gallon of water and read 10 pages of nonfiction. Hopefully it's a self-development type book, a self-help book, whatever. I believe that's everything.
Did you say like you have to do like a progress picture too or something?
Oh yeah, and you got to take a selfie every day. Just a progress pic. So all those, and I think that stuff's super basic. Like be out, to get an hour and a half of physical activity every day is like, it's really not that hard. Like it's not that hard. I mean, some days are harder than others, but starting that program really helped me kind of shape the life that I kind of want.
Like the discipline.
Yeah, it's like, bro, it's all about like that, having that discipline, and then also, how much more focused I was when I came to sit down and to do some work, to get some mixing done or whatever. It was just like, just so much more dialed in. So much more dialed in, bro. Like crazy. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's like when you exercise, it's like you set your energy to a certain, like, I don't know, like tempo, right?
Yeah.
And, it's like you're always getting it reset into that place. And otherwise you can be all over the place. There's a goat that I got to reference back to, another YouTube legend, Ryan Leslie.
Oh,
yeah. And I've watched, like, I mean, everything from his start to like his like kind of disappearing now, but the man's doing work still. He's probably with like some model somewhere in the world.
He actually developed an app too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He did. It was a lot of people use it. It's like an engagement app to like use text messaging to engage with your audience.
Fans and the audience and stuff.
Interesting. I like that idea.
But there was a time that he was talking about his 16-hour workdays, and he broke it into 4 hours.
Okay.
And he's like, he's doing 4 jobs, and they're each 4 hours long a day.
Okay, I see.
And so it's like, it's one thing to think about something as 16 hours. It's another thing to think about it as 4 4s.
Yeah, I'm kind of breaking up.
And I've kind of, ever since then, it's not true 4 4s, but I work in like kind of like 4 blocks a day.
Yeah.
I have right now, my partner and I, we get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. We go to the gym and they come home, have breakfast, and get ready for like work. And so there's like a 6 to like 9 time frame. Then there's my 9 till lunch time frame. And then my lunch is always, I take my lunch and I watch something. I just like separate my brain from work. It's always like watch a show or something, like 100% focus. Like I'm always watching shows in the background all the time, unless I'm listening to something like music. But when it comes to like, you know, taking that lunch break, I want to like separate myself from whatever the work is so that like my brain changes its rhythm. Then there's like the second half, and then there's the whole evening. And I'll break that evening up sometimes, but otherwise it's like another 4-hour block or like 5-hour block. And so you kind of like break it into these blocks, and then it makes you think like within that time frame you have to be dedicated to what you're working on, instead of like just looking at like a very long time frame and it feels overwhelming, or you just kind of like end up like, I don't know, dragging on.
Yeah.
It's obviously like the older you get and the more responsibilities you have, you get locked into having less time.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, you know, like if you can break things into time frames, you'll end up starting to look at it a little bit differently and attacking it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I agree. So do you break up your days in terms like that because you're doing so many different things? So you have like kind of your fitness in the morning, and then you have, you know, your actual professional job, and then I'm assuming like towards like the evening, that's where you do more like the YouTube and kind of the YouTube content and, you know, producing your clients there.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm also kind of a dabbler in many ways, where like if I get to work from home with my professional job, so if I have downtime in between things, my 2 desks are side by side, so I'll just like, you know, I have worked on many of 5-minute parts of my mixes throughout the day. Yeah, like it's just blocking it out. Like growing up, I have a little sister who was born like 13 years after me. And so I had to take a lot of responsibility and help raise her. And because of that situation, having to like grow my teenage years and taking on adult responsibilities, I realized I had all these time constraints all the time throughout high school that a lot of teenagers wouldn't have. And so it set my mind for like that kind of discipline and time constraint. I would have to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to get her to school by this time, and then I would have to go to school. Then I'd come out of school and go pick her up from school, and then I'd have to like get her home to eat. Then I have to take her to dance, and then on top of that, I still had stuff I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I'd be up to like 4 o'clock in the morning making music, and then get up at 7 and be like, "How am I alive?"
Well, you have the energy at that age, but
I look like a zombie. But somehow I had, I was like, I'm like, man. Then the nights where I'd be up to like 4 in the morning and then back up at 7. That is some dumb ass shit,
bro, this is stupid shit. What about you, bro? Do you have any like in terms of like fitness and stuff, or are you doing anything there?
I just been going to the gym in the morning, not as consistently as I should be, but a lot more consistently now than before. I kind of like crashed, I can say, like last week. Because like my sleeping schedule has been like terrible. If people know me, like my sleeping schedule is like bad.
It's all over the place.
And like, like late nights, like go to sleep like 3 hours, sometimes 2. You know what I mean? But over the past like week and a half, I've been taking a lot more time towards it and just getting enough sleep, like squeezing in like 6-7 hours a night, and then like going to the gym as soon as I wake up to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Do you find it helpful when you're like coming to like, you know, produce on a track or anything like that? Have you
The
found
first week I didn't feel like it was helpful at all. I was like, why am I doing this?
It's a slog fest.
Yeah. I was literally getting to the studio like tired. I'm like, I just had to work out this morning and everything like that. But like over time, like now that I'm on like kind of like week 2 going through it, I start to actually feel like the benefits of it, kind of like just like clearing out your mind too. Like the gym, I used to not only just work on health, but just clear out your mind and just like focus on things outside of just like everything else that you have going on. So it kind of did help like now that I, like later on in the process, just in the sense of like producing, it does help. My mind is clear of like everything else that's been going on in the day. I can actually focus on the task at hand, as well as like the discipline aspect, as you mentioned. Yeah.
Something else that's
Nice.
also like important for this, and I think helps with your motivation. And my partner and I just recently switched from doing like our workouts in the evening to the morning, and it started settling into me like a couple weeks in now, like how this is shifting. You get up in the morning, and what do most of us do? We grab our phones,
Yeah.
start looking at shit, start getting that imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
right?
It's,
And getting up and like we have to like hurry up to get to the gym to make sure we have enough time to get our workouts in. I'm not really looking at it that much. I do have stuff I look at on my phone, but it's mostly like data tracking shit.
yeah.
And then I will go to the gym, and I'm realizing like the vast majority of my morning is focused on like fighting that fight in the gym. For me, there's always like a fight in the gym that I have to have with
Yeah.
myself, and I have that fight, have my food,
hmm
get myself right before I have any other influence.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's probably also a good reason why I haven't been on socials that much these recently.
Well, because like I go there because I'm I'm trying to clear my mind. I'm not being distracted or influenced by anything else. I'm there to get my mind right.
Yeah.
And as much as it is physical, I think like it's mostly mental.
Yeah.
Big aspect of it.
Yeah, I think it's mostly mental. Like, but it's so funny how like you exert energy thinking you'll have less energy later, but I find the exact opposite. I exert this energy like when I'm at the gym or I'm doing yoga or whatever, and I'm much more energized throughout the rest of my day. Whereas if I don't know, there's just something interesting that I noticed.
There are parts of your body my trainer and my best friend could articulate these actually.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna like say them in a general sense because all I can say. But it's like there are chemicals in your body that are essentially dormant, and if you're not exercising, and when you exercise, then you're telling those parts of your body to work. And then they're actually working now. And so now you actually have energy because the things that create energy that you're feeling are actually active. But if you don't exercise, then these things are going to fall asleep. There's lots of parts of your body, like especially those of us in the studio who don't move very much and sit in a chair, literally, I'm going to say it, but like our ass literally is asleep, right? And then we get pains in our hips because our ass is asleep,
Yeah.
right? You have to like make your body actually do things to create energy and to put you in balance, or you're going to end up, feeling like shit.
Yeah, exactly. Are you like planning on continuing to like release music as an artist?
Yeah, I guess we're back into it, right? I never know when this
Bro.
guy is recording me.
Bro, I'm an engineer. I record everything.
No, I no, that's smart. Back in my radio broadcasting days, they say the second that people enter the studio, you start
record.
recording.
Yeah.
I got one of the best intros for a radio station for like a band that was like a Nickelback cover band.
Yeah.
Because I started recording as they came in, and then we started like making fun of like one of the other dudes who worked at the station, and they were like joking around, and then that we cut that, and that was the intro. It was like funny, but yeah, as going back to being an artist, that's something that like I right now I'm in the process of figuring out. I want to like put out my own project. I don't know exactly how long, and I know I want it to be tonally different. Like I'm in like an inspiration phase right now. I'm kind of like selecting the different music that's like inspiring me to like freestyle. The cadences that I want to freestyle, and the like kind of lyrics I want to write. Like when it comes to it, I'm always been like a lyricist.
Yeah.
But I like to be a lyricist. Like I don't want to be like lyricist from like cannabis kind of lyricist. I'm not here just to like show you how good my bars are and you can't relate to the song. That's not what I mean. But like I always want to structure my rhymes in a way that's like poetic, makes you think, leaves you with something. But I always talk about topics that are very different from everybody else.
In what sense?
Like, my original rap name back in high school, I had a couple of them, like we all do. But the one I like had for the longest time was DeReal, which stood for Darcy is real. Not super hard to figure that out. But and afterwards, when I decided to get back into making music and making my own stuff, I was like, my motto has always been that like my music always has to be real to who I am. Like no faking it. Like I didn't grow up in a ghetto, right? I grew up like being dragged around a bunch of racist people, but definitely not in a ghetto. And so I'm never gonna portray a message that is not authentic to who I am, you know. And like a lot of people might anticipate that I'm going to make rap music that would sound very similar to other, but that's not who I am because it's not my experience. So that would be a lie, and I don't like that. Plus I also don't want to attract people would be like, oh, you're pretending to be of a life that you're not actually part of. And that's going to attract like an energy towards me of people like, you know, nobody wants to see somebody who's faking it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So for me, the stuff that I want to talk about is just coming from my experience, whether it's like my struggles or like positive, I hate to say positive messages. It sounds like fucking shit.
That's what it is.
No, but it's more like I don't know. I'm contemplating these ideas around like motivation,
Uplifting.
yeah, or like one thing I love to do is take what you think something's gonna be and flip it upside down. So like taking the concept of like someone says like a song about being selfish and like, oh, am I being selfish if I do this? And like I want to take the whole concept and flip it upside down so that you hear it and you think, oh, this is this kind of song, but it's completely the opposite song, but with the same phrasing as the other song, and it feels very similar to the other song you like, that typical type of song, but it's not that. Of course, I'm still in my exploration phase. So, like, you know, like any artist, I'm just gonna say a bunch of random shit right now, and you're like, I think I get what you're saying. I don't understand what you're saying.
What are some of your biggest inspirations?
Like that's a question that people ask. That's like, who's your favorite artist? And you're like, I don't know.
Or at least like in the past week.
Yeah.
What have you been like leaning towards more, or like grabbing a lot of inspiration from?
Stuff that like, I mean, one artist that there's two artists that like for me in the last like 5 years have been like super strong that I just like a really heavy inspiration from is like J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar, like for instance, my dad who's a musician didn't really like Kendrick Lamar. Didn't really like, he got the wrong impression. I got the wrong impression of Kendrick Lamar first time someone showed me his stuff. And then I was like, no. I sat my dad down once and I was like, listen to Sing About Me by Kendrick Lamar. And he listened to Sing About Me and it was like, I might have to rethink my position. Like,
wait, what was the position that you guys had prior?
Like for me, I just like at first when I heard him, I heard one of his songs. Somebody was listening to it at work years ago, and it was like he's doing his high pitched tone voice, and I'm like, I'm not into that. I don't like that.
Oh, okay.
I was also during that time being a little less open minded, and then I heard one day afterwards I was in a club and it was that Sit Back Drank. So like I was like, and at first I was like, you know, we're taking shots or whatever, and I'm like, just another song about getting drunk, whatever. And then all of a sudden I was like listening to lyrics and I was like, is he talking about being an alcoholic, but he made it into a club banger about drinking? That's fucking subversive as hell. Like that's completely not what I thought the song was about.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is interesting. And then I started getting to his album, and then I heard Sing About Me, and I was like, this is. To this day, that song needs to be studied. It is so good. If you haven't, for the person listening right now, if you have not heard Sing About Me by Kendrick Lamar, you've got to hear that song and really analyze those verses. Like I recently listened to it again and realized something I didn't realize about that song, and I've been listening to it intently for years.
Yo, I love when music makes you do that.
Yeah.
You know, I think that good music does that. You hear like, bro, you listen to the song like the 500th time and you'd be like, where did that fucking sound come from? Like, I never realized that sound was there, or whatever, this lyric, right? Yeah, it's crazy that like music has so many different, perspectives that we can have, and sometimes it's like, at which point are you going to hear that sound that X producer put there or the engineer did, right?
Yeah.
What's that song for you?
I don't know, man. I don't know,
Nothing comes to mind.
bro. Like, Traumatized, Meek Mill. I don't know. There's something about that song, bro, that like, I don't know. You can just like hear the pain in Meek's voice, but like, there's always something about that song that like gets me.
Just super authentic and raw.
Yeah, like it is pretty raw. I don't know. Yeah, that song though is like one of those songs where like, oh, I didn't realize he said that, or later on I realized that there was this in the production or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Let's flip it back. What about yourself?
It would probably have to be Marvin Gaye, Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
Oh man, we just got in school with that one. That was tough right there.
No, there's literally something about that song. It's like you can literally have it on repeat like over and over and over and over and over again, and like it'll never feel like you just played it 30 seconds ago.
That's a good point. I just love when they got like a dope message or a dope sound. There's an artist that I found at one point that I put Sean onto, which was an artist named Woodkid.
Oh,
yeah, he knew it was coming. And the song "Iron" by Woodkid, it's like this French artist / producer, and he put out this like, I don't think he's put anything else since then, like 2012 or something like that. And he has an amazing visual like thing on YouTube for it too. So it's like every song on the album is one continuous short film, and every music video cuts at where the next song starts. So yes, that's the one right there.
Okay.
This sound, I'm telling you, both from like his voice is amazing, but the production, the mixing on it. Find your favorite place to listen, your favorite sound source. Put that thing on. You're going to be in a different place.
Like that one song, Iron Man. Like you close your eyes and you listen to that song, and you're just like, "Where the fuck am I?" Like it literally. I remember the first time I listened to it, like it was almost an out of body experience.
Wow.
I close my eyes. I'm like, I love listening to music that way. Like I love closing my eyes and listening, and like obviously I'm sitting in my studio, so like I have a bit of a different kind of perspective than an average listener. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, I feel like I'm in this different fucking world. I don't feel like I'm like in reality right now.
Wow.
It was a crazy feeling. Like
This song has a high standard in my head.
It will meet it. So describe it more, because you're like, what kind of production is it? It is like medieval times in modern day production, mixed with like something pop underlying it.
Yeah,
it's so weird. A shout out to Assassin's Creed, the video game, because they dropped like an E3 ad for one of their games years ago, and they used his song in it. Okay. And it was like with that game, it was like an unreal commercial. And I was like, but it was such the commercial was made by the song, and the song was so powerful that I had to find the song off of the commercial. Oh, wow. And that's how I found out about the artist. And they used Iron by Woodkid, and it's just like, yeah, both the E3 commercial and his music video are like amazing visuals that go along with the song. But yeah, that song is on my gym playlist because it's so high energy that it's like I have two songs right now that are like when we're in that last set. We're doing 265 deadlifts and we gotta pull this out. I have two songs I go to right now, which is the El Chapo the Game remix with was it Diplo or something remix, or I forget which EDM remix it is. That one and Iron by Woodkid. And Iron by Woodkid, the song goes like in this like ups and downs, and it'll be like if I gotta like do a hard run or something, and we're gonna have a low point, but we're gonna have to go all out. That's the song right there.
Really? Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, yeah, it's
I'm just
crazy.
geeking out on it. I love it.
It's a good song. I remember I remember when you showed me and you're like, dude, just like study this song. And you're like, yo, it's actually crazy. I was like, okay, because I don't always listen to the shit that people be like putting me on. No offense, but like this was one I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah, it's a legit track. Like, yeah, it'll meet those high bars if as long as you're not like I only listen to this genre of music, then you'll be disappointed. But anybody else who's interested in like listening to just sound,
Yeah,
it'll blow you away.
yeah.
So what's the? I always ask this question to everybody.
I fucking knew this was.
The man over here is like waiting for will it happen today?
I knew it was coming.
So, out of all the songs that you've heard or that's been released in the past year, great. What song can you point out that you wish you produced?
Oh shit.
Or if it's for mixing, it could be if you mixed or like been a part of.
Damn. Hold up. Let me get my phone. Where's my phone at? I feel like there's like something that like I'm like listening to on repeat that like what is it?
Everybody should just expect that question from here on out.
Yeah.
So are you asking stuff that's like been released in this last year?
Released in this last year.
Okay, damn. Because I was like, I fell into some music that I hadn't heard, but it wasn't released this past year. Was it? Was it released this past year? Ooh.
That's the challenge.
2021 or all in 2022?
After June 2021.
After June 2021. That might be in there. That might be in there. That's a good question. Because I feel like the stuff that I'm finding is the stuff I liking more than like. There's a lot of good stuff coming out, but there hasn't been as much stuff that I've heard that I've resonated with. But the things that like caught me,
or what you've heard in the past year.
I mean, because I want to go there because like the stuff that I'm like really the most intrigued by was the Clouds mixtape by NF. That really caught me off guard when I saw it. That's why it's 2021. But it was like the production, the mixing. And I've been like studying it a bit, and I'm like, what's interesting. So like back when I was first like using Fruity Loops 7 back in the day when I was young, and you would get those like really cheesy like orchestra sounds. You try to have like you're making your beat, and it's like bom bom bom, but it sounds like complete trash, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of like real orchestra stuff in his songs that are like background that really drive the feeling, but are not like if you're not really listening like we listen to music, you might ignore them.
Right.
And I'm noticing his drum rhythms are like really simple, but he drives his songs with orchestra, like orchestra drums, to really push things forward, and yet the how loud he's getting them was really blowing me away. Just like how the sound that they're ending up at. And how like manicured it is to like match what he's doing really like catches me. Like I'm always really caught when something has a specific sound to it that really like okay, how did they do that?
Yeah.
Like I'm a shout out. I don't think this is in the last year, but the work you did with Voutt. Right?
Yeah.
Like just the like I was spending time listening to it, and I got like also I think it was the Cruel. I'm horrible with names.
Silence.
Cruel Silence. I was like, I was gonna say Cruel Summer. I was like, that's not it. Yeah, Cruel Silence is like my favorite track, and then there was another one that like was my partner's like nephew's favorite song, and he'd be making me like put it on repeat every time he's in the car, and then but there was just like I was asking a lot of questions because I'm like the reverse engineer. I was just like, okay, the way he's getting that vocal to sit is very different than how I get the vocal to sit. So what is he doing? And I just like try to figure it out. And so that one really like, had me inspired for a minute, just like trying to figure out like how you went about certain things, and then I would hit certain artists I've been working with, not the rappers obviously, because it's not quite not translating there, but other artists, and I start asking myself, like, when I'm working with singers, like, okay, what did John do in that moment that like is different than how I'm thinking about it? And where's that middle ground between what I think and what, how that album came out? So there's a couple that like really caught me from like how they sound and how they're built up.
What did you do, Sean?
Give them the secrets. Let me know.
Jocelyn Jones.
Bro, honestly, like nothing. I really build, because the way I think about music is like, the song is the vocal. Like at the end of the day, like to me, like the song is the vocal. So like, as I'm mixing, I have this thought in mind and I'm mixing around that. So everything gets brought up around that vocal. That doesn't mean that the vocal has to be the loudest fucking thing in the mix. It's like, that's what our kind of focal point is. Is it going to be sitting a little further back with a little bit more glued with the instrumental? Is it going to be pushed forward like a rap vocal, heavy in your face type shit? Like, what am I going for? So I usually have that in mind. Like, I don't care how good the production is or anything like that. It's how well was like, the intent and feeling of the vocal captured first, and try to bring that out and then kind of build everything around that. However, I'm going to go about that.
So do you start your mixes with the vocal?
No, not always. No.
What do you start with?
We talked about this. I always start with like the bass. Yeah. Bass, and then kind of bass, and then maybe drums, maybe music. But
Bass is always first.
Like, yeah, bass is usually first. It's like, let's just get that settled, make sure that's rocking the right way. Whatever kind of track it is, just make sure that's settled. And then, but from there, it's usually like more, soloing different elements of the mix. So like, let's do all the drums and the vocal and see how that sounds, right? That's one version of the song, right? Mm-hmm. But then I'm gonna do maybe like the drums and the music. What's that sound like? What's that song sound like? What version of that song does that sound like? How do I get those to all blend together? And then, okay, we'll do like vocal and bass or vocal and music, right? And like just listening to, it's John Castelli that I kind of got this idea from, and watching him mix is like, he's in the way he frames it is like, yeah, like I'm listening to different versions of the song and getting those to blend.
Wow.
And then you bring in everything. Okay, like now it all starts to make sense.
Yeah.
But
I really like what you're saying there about different versions of the song.
Yeah.
I learned a similar thing by Mix by Ali, watching him doing his live streams mixes, and how he would solo different things against each other. And I started incorporating that more. One thing that taught me something interesting, and for those that are, learning to engineer to improve their production, something that really like taught me something was, first of all, mixing other people's music teaches you a lot about your own music. And I learned something, and it changed my production. One client changed my entire production for the reverse reason that you would think. So this guy sent me his stuff to mix, and I mixed his whole album. And his production, I kept running into the same problem, that most of the instruments he was using a lot of them were pads, and they were mostly played like whole notes, like a whole bar. And like, so the problem I was running into is most of these sounds were all in the same general octave. So all the same frequency ranges, and they were all played with the same like timing. So it was very hard, and I was also, this is when I was much newer engineer, but it was very hard for me to figure out like, how do these things gonna balance? Because almost every sound is blending on top of each other, so they're all cutting into the same frequency, so it's like not going anywhere. And then at one point I was like so frustrated with it, I just listened to his vocals against the drums only. And I was like, personally, I actually enjoy the way this sounds without the instruments more than with the instruments.
Yeah.
And it made me immediately realize a couple of things about getting loudness out of a sound by the sparseness.
Yeah.
But it made me want to go back to my own music and go, I want shorter transient information when I make music. And I like having more short transient things. And then I'll still have some instruments that, play longer notes. But something about having a lot of short transients allows me to get my mix to a certain place when it's my own stuff. And because I was dealing with everything with super long-tailed notes, and I was so frustrated, I was like, not doing that. It was like, I'm never doing that because I'm so mad that I had to work through that problem. And so it fundamentally changed my way of thinking about it. But I like the idea of like when you mix somebody else's stuff, especially when like, some random BeatStars beat is sent to you and you're like, well, this guy screwed this and this and this up. And now you have to mix through it. And then you're like, it's like a lesson on your own work to be like, all right, maybe I won't make that problem for myself because I had to fix it for somebody else. I had to do a mix where this artist I work with has like a producer who like, not really a real producer, and I could tell like after I got this one track, it was like a bunch of splice loops on top of each other. And like, don't get me wrong, I use a lot of splice. I'm not gonna pretend like people don't use splice, but it was like I could tell they weren't really like, they were just like, here's one 4-bar, here's another 4-bar, here's another 4-bar, here's another 4-bar. That's the whole thing. And I could tell because like in this track, the kick had an 808, but on another track with the melody there was a bass line, and they weren't matching up. So I had to like find a way to cut the low end out of from the 808, but keep the kick sound. But it was all the instruments, like all the drums and the 808 in one track, because I needed the bass line to come through because it was the groove of the track.
Yeah.
But the 808 was messing with the low end of the bass, and I was like, I hate this guy.
I would have just resampled, threw a kick in there, and just deleted it altogether.
Yeah, I should have done something like that. I ended up finding some like interesting ways of like doing some dynamic processing, but it was just like a pain in my yeah. Now you're making me feel like I should go back to that track.
I was actually working on a beat, and it's more like a boom bap style beat, and I found a splice loop, and it had like low, like it had no like. There was a kick transient, but when like they do like New York parallel compression, it was like that type of drum loop. So like there wasn't any real like transient coming from the drums, and there was no like sub coming from like the kick.
Yeah.
So like I just like added this kick in. It was more like sub dominant, and like I just had that shit like 18 dB quieter, and it just it like made the fucking loop. It literally like gave the loop a whole new life. Yeah, sometimes it's all you need is just like a little bit of like sample reinforcement.
Yeah, sometimes that is the case. Sometimes you just need to have producers who actually produce the track, and not just copy and paste a bunch of things together and not actually try.
Well, I mean, like that's where, like, as an engineer, like we can step in.
Yeah.
As a producer, you could step in and say, like, that's why I like, having a little bit of a background in production, is because like I can understand these things a little bit better. Is because then I know a quicker way is to just replace the sample. Sometimes, where I don't need that snare sound, or I don't need that kick. I don't need that kick that's fully not in phase with the 808. So I'll just find one that it is. And it's problem solved. Yeah.
Yeah. It also depends on the sound though, and how much you can get something close to it, or how it's going to be like completely ruin the groove of the whole track.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. It all depends on like how the things put together.
Exactly. Yeah. Not wrong. Well, bro, I think wrapping it up here. So why don't you tell us where people can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram or YouTube, Music by Darcy. My website's musicbydarcy.com. If you're interested in checking out the StudioAssist app, that's where you're going to find it at musicbydarcy.com. And that's basically where I am at everywhere on the internet that you want to find me.
Gotcha. Okay, we'll get the show notes. We'll put all those links in the show note for everybody. This is _Gravy Mixes, Sean Gray.
This is One Mammoth.
Appreciate you coming on, bro.
Appreciate it.
The Behind the Sound podcast was recorded at the Orange Lounge Recording Studio, located downtown Toronto.